Radios were turned off. The flight path did a 90-degree turn to the left, basically on a southwestern heading, and disappeared into the vastness of the Indian Ocean. We don't know the motivation for doing this. We don't know.
On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared, leaving the world with many unanswered questions. There was no wreckage, no black box, just nothing where an aircraft and 239 people used to be.
Richard Godfrey is no crackpot. He's a respected British aerospace engineer and physicist who says he's found the doomed airliner. If he's right, he'll provide desperately needed answers for the families of the 239 passengers and crew.
In 2025, digital forensics found an essential piece of information: an encrypted message from a passenger that had been overlooked. What seemed like random noise back then has now been decoded. The message reveals something not just unsettling, but disturbing. The final message from MH370 has been decoded, and it's terrifying. A flight that never arrived, the Vanishing Act. On March 8, 2014, at 1:19 a.m. local time, a flight crew reported to air traffic control that they were flying steadily over the South China Sea in a Boeing 777. 2 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., the plane disappeared from radar without a trace. There were no distress signals or calls for help. Air traffic control and others reacted quickly. Suddenly, millions worldwide wondered what happened to the 239 people on board. Some considered the possibility of a mechanical failure, fire, or hijacking. But the lack of warning added to the confusion. Military radar later picked up a faint signal indicating the plane had flown off course. However, verification was slow, and search efforts began in earnest. Ships and aircraft searched vast ocean areas as countries joined the effort, facing rough seas and endless water. Weeks later, pieces of the plane washed up on distant shores, confirming that it was MH370. While this brought some hope, it also deepened the sadness, as essential parts like the main body and black boxes remained missing. Deep-sea searches failed to find them, and the ocean seemed to keep its secrets. How could a large aircraft like the Boeing 777 disappear? It was equipped with backups and GPS technology. What happened during those missing minutes? Were the passengers aware, or was someone else involved? As people speculated, theories emerged, including pilot error or UFOs. However, one detail was overlooked: a signal from satellites suggesting a possible final message. For years, most dismissed it as noise, but in 2024, this information became significant. This faint digital signal may reveal what truly happened. Are you ready to explore it? A signal lost in the noise, the forgotten transmission. In the search for MH370, a British satellite company called Inmarsat played an unexpected role. After the plane disappeared from primary radar, Inmarsat satellites continued to receive signals, or pings, from the aircraft's communication system. These pings were automatic check-ins, like a heartbeat, telling the world the plane was still there. Surprisingly, these signals kept coming for nearly 7 hours after the plane vanished, long after it should have run out of fuel. While search teams frantically tried to find the aircraft, it still sent signals. These pings helped create a rough search area, turning the vast ocean into a map for investigators. As teams searched this area, they hoped to find pieces of the plane. However, the information from those pings was quite limited. They only confirmed the plane's presence. There were no details about what was happening inside or if anyone was safe. Among the data, there was a lesser-known signal from a passenger's device, like a phone or tablet, right when the plane lost communication. At first, analysts dismissed it as a technical glitch, but in 2024, a technology expert took a fresh look and found something unusual. This signal had complex coding and appeared to be cloaked to avoid detection. The signal showed signs of being secretive and might have contained important information, like coordinates or a message for help. This hidden ping opens up new possibilities for understanding the mystery of MH370. The truth may not only lie in wreckage at the bottom of the ocean, but also in these quiet data signals, waiting for the right person to decode them. The device that should have been offline, a whistleblower's cry. A gadget started buzzing unexpectedly. The source was traced back to a device belonging to an American tech expert, a systems engineer experienced in aerospace and defense, the kind of person who gets approval for top-secret projects without hesitation. While reports describe him as a regular civilian contractor, people in the intelligence community whisper about his real work. He is involved in classified avionics, adjusting encrypted data to keep stealth jets hidden. It's serious business. He wasn't originally connected to that flight. His name didn't appear in early news reports. It only surfaced when someone checked flight tickets against US defense lists. That's when he got flagged. He booked his ticket less than 12 hours before the flight through a special military channel for secret trips. There were no warning signs, just a convenient booking. The ping from his phone was unusual. This wasn't regular app activity like social media or music apps. There were no health updates, voice messages, or GPS data. Instead, he sent a strange mix of 6 securely locked files with strong encryption. Cybersecurity experts later said, "This is military-grade stuff." Here's the puzzling part. MH370's communications were down. There was no Wi-Fi or satellite link, and the usual communication wasn't possible when the event occurred. The timestamp was 2:37 a.m., which was over 80 minutes after the plane disappeared from radar. It connected to a low-orbit satellite, not an aviation network, but a European climate monitoring satellite tracking weather. After weeks of work, they pieced everything together. What they found changed the entire search. A message that contained no words. Coordinates with no explanation. A map to nowhere. Once they put the pieces together and deciphered the pattern, it was not just another finding, it was a warning. They received a structured dump triggered by a system override, like a plane's alert saying, "Record this now." Investigations showed this data came from a custom app on Waters modified equipment, designed for processing data in harsh environments with weak signals. The results were shocking. From 2:32 to 2:36 a.m., cabin pressure was unstable, with rapid drops, as if the hull was under stress. Power surges went off the scale. Was it an internal issue or something from outside affecting the systems? The temperature dropped 20 degrees in under 90 seconds, too rapid for conditions at high altitude. This should not happen, especially on a plane like that. But the real shock? In the final data, 6 seconds of audio. Labs took weeks to clean it up. There were no words or pleas for help. Just breathing, slow, steady breaths. Someone trying to keep calm, thinking, in, out, don't panic. There was no sound of engines, seatbelts, or other passengers. Just that one breath, ragged and labored. The analysis showed signs of human distress. Adrenaline levels increasing, pacing quickening, like fear was closing in. No fakes, metadata and voice analysis matched Waters' previous clearance files exactly. It was a silent cry for help from a person who recognized in those moments that this isn't just bad luck or faulty wiring. It's something else. It's planned. It's watching. The simulator clue, revisited, a blueprint for disappearance. There is a set of coordinates without any backup. The last decrypted data ignores all the extra information and ends with a startling point. Coordinates wrapped in hex codes, compressed in a way only a tech expert would know how to do. Agencies around the world are analyzing these coordinates and plotting their location. They find it in a remote area of the southern Indian Ocean, which is off limits for flights. Military personnel know this area well for its sonar testing. US, Australian, and British teams use their listening equipment there. Civilian boats are not allowed. This spot is not marked on any public maps. Previous searches using Inmarsat data and drift calculations pointed to a different area, miles away. There's nothing about it in public simulations or satellite maps. However, independent analysts apply fuel burn and speed data from certain pings and find that it perfectly fits the pattern where the plane would have run out of fuel. This raises serious questions. Was the plane deliberately taken to a quiet area? Was there a glitch, or did someone manipulate the situation to cover it up? The most unsettling part. These coordinates are not found on Google Earth or any open chart. This suggests someone in the know provided the information. Military maps and sensitive data not shared outside certain circles. The sender understood not just where the plane went down, but also why it was kept secret. In 2014, there was a brief news report about Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's flight simulator, a device that showed saved flight paths mirroring the plane's mysterious route. The experts dismissed this as a coincidence, saying pilots often practice unusual scenarios. No direct link was established, and interest faded quickly. By 2025, a new investigation uncovered encrypted data with coordinates and altitude drops, formatted like airline navigation software. When these are compared with Zahari's simulator, they match perfectly. The paths overlap. The plane's movement after losing radar contact and its measured descent suggest deliberate control. Some gaps imply evasion. The plane skimmed high to avoid low radars and dipped for satellite blind spots, with the transponder turned off. This was not a mistake. It appears to be deliberate manipulation. Now there are questions. Was the simulation a test run by someone with experience and a motive? If Zahari wasn't to blame, who took control? Were there others monitoring the flight as it fell? What started as a hobby code is now crucial evidence. The simulator's overlap with a secret ocean location is no coincidence. It points to a deliberate plan. Suppression and silence, the cover-up unraveled. In early 2025, a contractor was cleaning old files at Malaysia's Transport Ministry when they found a hidden zip file labeled Anomaly. They thought it might be a lost passenger list or a glitch, so they opened it. Hours later, there was a crisis. The entire audit team was fired, and the situation raised red flags for national security. The file contained a memo dated March 9, 2014, just 30 hours after the aircraft disappeared. The memo reported a brief signal from the plane that was picked up by a low-orbit satellite before it vanished. A civilian data worker sent this information to the Kuantan Earth Station, Malaysia's satellite hub. However, this data never got attention. Officials labeled it a false positive and discarded it due to concerns about potential panic. In other words, they detected the passenger signal live hours after the radar lost contact, but chose to ignore it. This was termed a national chill. Later that year, independent investigators uncovered a leak and compared it with a file cracked in 2024. The results showed a perfect match, not only in content, but also in encryption and data fingerprints. This revelation hit hard. For a decade, officials claimed there was no real-time passenger data. They actually had it. The same vital information that shocked the world in 2024, but they decided to keep it quiet instead of sharing it. While Waters tried to share her findings, they chose to silence her. Phantom ringbacks and the BFO anomaly. Echoes from the deep. The ghost calls. After MH370 disappeared, families began to experience something strange. Phones that should have been silent suddenly started ringing. These calls didn't just beep to voicemail or offer a busy signal. They rang multiple times, almost like a cry for help, before clicking off and going silent. The sound echoed in quiet homes, breaking through the numbness. Families clung to this phenomenon, working with tech experts to trace the calls through phone networks. China Mobile, one of the leading carriers, later confirmed that at least one call was connected to a cell tower hours after the plane had vanished. This seemed impossible. The aircraft was lost, and phones shouldn't work from the ocean's depths. This news sparked hope among families and caught the attention of investigators and the public. However, Malaysian officials quickly shut it down, calling it a network hiccup. They claimed it was a glitch that made it seem like the phone was ringing without a connection. To them, it was just a harmless error in the system. But for the families, clinging to every possibility, it felt insufficient. If the phones rang and connected to a tower, it suggested that something from MH370 was still out there, maybe a piece afloat, keeping the devices alive long after the loss was declared. Then there's the Inmarsat data, which adds another layer to this mystery. The burst frequency offset readings suggest changes in speed and altitude. The last ping showed an alarming drop of 15,000 feet per minute. Some concluded it was a crash, caused by running out of fuel, or that the pilots were incapacitated. Others disagreed. They argued it might be just a glitch in the satellite data, or a controlled descent. Independent voices like Mike Exner referred to a similar incident in 2009, in which a plane glided to a soft landing rather than crashing. This division created two camps, one believing in a sudden disaster and the other considering a more controlled maneuver. When you consider Waters' logs and the descent coordinates, a darker possibility emerges. It wasn't a panic drop, but a choice, a final maneuver into the darkness. The data doesn't just show a fall, it indicates a movement. Someone was in control, navigating into the unknown. Disturbing implications. A pattern hidden in plain sight. The hidden truths. Only after examining every detail did the investigation of Waters' file reveal shocking information. It was clear and sharp, not a mistake or malfunction. What lay beneath the complicated data? A live feed system showing real-time information. Someone had taken control, overriding the autopilot. This was done intentionally. The critical moment was at 1:37 a.m. The area over the Gulf of Thailand was calm. Then suddenly, an override signal appeared. The autopilot shut down, and the controls switched to different commands. Someone was piloting the plane. The alarms went off immediately. AUX-02 rear offline. The rear oxygen supply was cut off. Hypoxia set in quickly for passengers beyond row 30. Lights out in minutes without warning. Telemetry records showed a sharp turn and a controlled descent. Not just a crash, but a maneuver away from radar detection. But the real shock? A text found in the system. Not autopilot. Signal bad. Manual override. This was a hurried message, added at a critical moment. It was Waters' last note, logging the situation. Not about the plane, but her thoughts. This raises serious questions. Was there a hack from outside or a mole within the plane? This indicates that MH370 was not just an accident. It was a coordinated effort, with the cockpit possibly not being necessary. The engineer's report highlights the worst scenario. The plane's fate was influenced by forces more powerful than we imagined. In mid-2025, a group of ex-aerospace veterans and defense dropouts started investigating MH370's electrical signals. Not just minor issues, but anything that could explain its disappearance. They found significant evidence. Military and civilian radar systems picked up signals from the plane. It appeared briefly, only to vanish and reappear some distance away. This was not a simple glitch. There was a pattern, closely linked to Waters' encrypted message. Then came another lead, an old military project, Project Eclipse, focused on disrupting signals and hiding aircraft. The goal was to jam transponders, create decoys, and make planes disappear from radar. The testing area? The South Indian Ocean. According to records from March 8, 2014, a stealth simulation with an unarmed drone operated in the same area as MH370. The timing and flight path were identical, but MH370 carried 239 real passengers. It was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The simulation treated it as a target, or a ghost. Did a real plane become caught up in this electronic cover-up? The line between speculation and reality is blurring. Could Waters' findings change our understanding of MH370? Share your thoughts on what really happened with that flight. Thanks for exploring this topic with me. Are you feeling uneasy? Please like this and subscribe for more insights into aviation mysteries. See you next time.